My over-bloated government is a means of job creation. That is what Tinubu is saying to Labour and to the rest of the world. Okay, so the question is, if Tinubu is to create job, okay, is he supposed to create job for politicians or for the already impoverished Nigerians for survival? You are creating job for people who have stolen enough of Nigerian money and already very rich, and now you are leaving the downtrodden to suffer, and you say it's a means of creating job for who? Or rather, you are trying to appoint people that will protect your interests in government. That is the way it is. It is not job creation anything, because if you are creating job, you should seek to create job for the average and the poor Nigerian for survival, and not creating job for people who are already overfed with Nigerian money. It's quite unfortunate that this kind of thing is coming from a Nigerian president, meaning that he is very, very clueless in governance. President Bola Tinubu has appointed the giant cabinet in Nigeria's democratic history, and the leader of the country's biggest labor group said the president's justification was that it was a means of job creation during meeting with him. And that is the NLC chairman saying. Appointing 48 ministers along with their entourage of aides and special assistants, hiring their staff, furnishing their offices, and paying their allowances means a significant uptick in the cost of running government at a time the government is inflicting on Nigerians policies that have impoverished them. This suggests that the government is unwilling to share in the pain of cost cutting. You see? Yes, because when you say you are cutting cost of governance, you should cut it starting with the government officials and not cutting what benefits the downtrodden and using it to enrich yourselves at the highest level. That is not acceptable. Joe Ajaero, president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, in an interview televised on Monday night, said that cutting governance costs was one of the issues presented as part of labor demands, but the president said, "We talked to Mr. President about the size of his government and the fact that when he finished appointing ministers, the ministers will appoint special assistants who will appoint the assistants." The president said, we from Labour should look at it from the point of job creation, he said on a channel television political program. That is how bad it is that this government is saying that over-bloating cost of governance is a means of job creation. That's bad. My people are getting employment and we should not see it as over-bloated, Ajero said. Can you imagine? That is what Tinubu is saying. On his fleet of cars, he said the president admitted it was large and tried to reduce it, but his security raised concern. Can you imagine? Because they're benefiting from it. He went further to say that he preferred to use his private jet, but the security people said no, he must use the government jet, said Ajero. Can you imagine? So Tinubu wanted to cut down his fleet of cars in his convoy. Security said no. He wanted to use his private jet. Security said no, he must use government jet. So what value does all of this add to cost of governance in Nigeria? And what value does it add to the downtrodden in Nigeria today? As of Monday evening, lawmakers in the upper chamber, that is the Senate, had confirmed 45 of the 48 presidential ministerial nominees, and 20 senior special assistants already appointed, many of whom will sit in the cabinet meeting, and this would be the giant cabinet in the country's history. With only 24 ministries, Tinubu's cabinet will have at least 2 ministers for each church, a situation that could create its own set of problems, prominent of which is redundancy and friction. Some ministries are also expected to be merged and new ones completed. Can you imagine? Many Nigerians have called on the president to implement the report on the restructuring and rationalization of federal government parastatals, commissions, and agencies submitted to the Nigerian government in 2012, known as the Oronsoye Report, and the president's aides have said it is under consideration. Still, this bloated government runs contrary to such claims. The President's Policy Advisory Council has proposed achieving a $1 trillion economy by 2030 that would be funded partly by implementing civil service reforms and recommendations in the Oronsoye report. So after Tinubu announced an end to petrol subsidy, pushing the pump price of petrol 3 times what they were and unifying the exchange rate windows, thereby devaluing the naira, shaving off over 60% of its value. This has triggered a hike in commodity prices and import duties. Many Nigerians demanded that the government cut its own costs so they are assured the government shares in their pain. With the cabinet set to provide jobs for jobless politicians and other hanger-ons, save for a handful of technocrats, the president seems to have dashed any hopes that it won't be business as usual. That is it. He has dashed every hope completely. He has dashed every hope completely. And that is very, 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 very appalling. Okay, so what we are seeing here is that Tinubu is telling us that the overbloated government is his way of creating job. And who are you creating job for? For politicians. And you're coming here to tell the labor that you wanted to use your private jet. The security forces said no, or security agencies. You wanted to, reduce the fleet of cars in your convoy, and the security agencies also said no. So what are you trying to tell us? All these are all lies and pretenses. That is good. That is true. So this now in a period where Nigerians are suffering with the devaluing of naira and the removal of fuel subsidy, this Tinubu government already promised to share Nigerian pains by reducing cost of governance. But what is doing today by these ministers that are being nominated for screening shows that Tinubu is far from, fulfilling the promise of sharing in the pains of Nigerians today. It's quite unfortunate. We know that APC had never promised anything and provided it. We know that everything about APC is lie. And with Tinubu, that is his own life is also full of secrecy and every uncertainties around him a lot. Okay, Tinubu is actually not ready to cut cost of governance. And the worst of all is telling the labor to see the overbloated government as means of creating job is the worst of its kind. Creating job for who? Creating job for politicians that are already overfed. This is terrible, I tell you the truth. That we have a clueless government, we have a government that is self-centered and selfish, we have a government that approves 70 billion naira for the senators and the House of Rep to share among themselves as palliative for the fuel subsidy. Meanwhile, the $800 million that they collected from World Bank to share as palliative for Nigerians has not been shared, and we don't know where that money is. So it means that Tinubu is more concerned about the government and his government officials rather than the citizen. Okay, the government does not form up to 5% of the populace, not even 1% of the population, leaving the other over 200 million Nigerians to suffer. So this is government of the rich by the rich and for the rich. That is what it means. It's not a government of the people by the people and for the people. It's not democratic. So obviously this government is going to be worse than Buhari's government. It's obvious. And look at the caliber of people that are being nominated for positions in his cabinet and in his government. You will see that it's a government of the corrupt by the corrupt and for the corrupt. That is another thing. It's going to be a very terrible one, I tell you. This is going to be the worst government ever in the history of Nigeria. Already, the 50 or 60 days in office has proven that this government is not, it doesn't care about the welfare of its citizens, or rather, it's about its own self. And that is very, very bad. So this is what is coming from Joe Ajero, the president of the Nigerian Labour Congress, that it's a part of the outcome of their meeting with the presidency, where Tinubu is telling them that they should see the over-bloated government as a means of job creation. Let's hear your take in this matter.